Well, I think in this era of tech, what we really have figured out is how to merge tech with that sort of human artistic feel. And I think we are getting close to perfecting that, because essentially what you want to do is you want to be able to spend a lot more time just on the artistic final touch and that final sculpturing. And then the rest of the time you want to spend digitally to perfect the engineering and the design kind of coming together perfectly and using every single millimeter that you want to use to your advantage. So what's happening now with tech is you can go in immediately, see where the bumpers are. You can get your surface really close to the bumpers within millimeters. And when you get into here in the clay model, you can now spend time on sculpturing the fenders and the hood and whatever else. So even though the clay modeling time has actually shortened dramatically, the fact is that we're able to spend more of that time in a valuable way. And that's kind of what's changed, but we do need clay modeling even though we have the tech. It's just that they're working together to actually optimize the entire process. So what clay does that other materials don't, specifically when you're talking about an actual full-size model, is that you can put on and you can take off and you can actually sculpture it in a very sensitive way. Something that would be more hard if you would do, for instance, a foam model. Some other companies in the old day would do something called apple wood, would be almost like a wood model. But again, it's very difficult to add and take off in those type of materials. So clay, I think, is the optimal material when we talk about sculpturing a beautiful car. The clay modeling process is essentially that once you have a full size or scale milled model, you now concentrate on refining the sculpture, the lines and the proportions. And you do that together with one or several clay modelers. When you work on a full size model, you normally have several clay modelers. And that process is a process that kind of keeps coming in and out as you develop the vehicle. Early on, you finalize the concept, the design. As you then move into engineering and digital data, you actually start getting feedback that you need to change something for maybe some production reasons. And therefore, this is a process that goes forth and back throughout the development until you have a final freeze and tooling sign off. At that point, the clay model is done, no more changes. So the modeling process is probably different from company to company. In traditional car companies, it probably takes many months. Sometimes at Fisker, we will do a scale model in a few days. A full-size model definitely takes several weeks, but again, we work at it maybe in 2-3 weeks at the time. We then scan it and then go in digital modeling, digital data, working with engineering. Then we get feedback, then you spend another couple of weeks. So it's not anymore this sort of several months process and nobody looks at it. It's sort of a simultaneous clay modeling, digital modeling, and engineering that goes on constantly. So the clay is normally prepared in a clay oven, and that keeps it very soft, and it's easy to apply it to the model. But then when you actually start working on a model, you want it to be a little cooler, and you kind of want it to have the right temperature where you can scrape off and change the model. And for instance, some of the tools the modeler uses what's called a steel that you see here, and is used to actually scrape on the model. And there's many different tools that we use depending on how tight the surfaces are or what exactly the modeler would be doing. So they have a host of tools, and some of these tools are actually almost like custom made, because this trade is a fairly small trade globally. So I think a lot of modelers are also using different tools depending on what they like to do. In fact, some of the steel has turned into carbon fiber, etc. But essentially, it is sort of traditional clay modeling tools that are used to work in this sort of semi-hard clay.